What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we are taking a look at the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies. Yes, you, specifically. I don't want you to have any fun. You've had too much in the last 2 years. You've used it all up, and I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to have any more. That's the way it works. Hey, I don't make the rules. Blame that on George Washington, the almost unknown part of the Constitution. That's what they were chasing after in National Treasure. The Marvel Zombies clause, which is different from the Santa Claus. So blame Nicolas Cage, I guess. Don't blame him. He's been through enough. To get back on track, for those of you who are new, welcome. This is a series that I do for Kickstarters or game founds or large board game campaigns that have raised over $1 million. They've broken that barrier in order to put your excitement to the test. The reason being is that these large-scale campaigns are really good at driving up the excitement and making you feel like you need to get this thing, when really you may just want to get this thing. And sometimes, as I found out on numerous occasions before I realized that I have this tendency inside myself, sometimes you may not even want the thing, but you feel like you want it because you're getting swept up in the marketing or whatever. And I mean, that's cool. There's no shame in it. People out there are paid a lot of money to make you feel this way. So the goal of this video is not to just splash cold water over your parade because I'm a Grinch who hates fun. I am, but that's for different reasons. But it's to make sure that you are as excited a year and a half from now when you opt for the sensible one-wave shipping and then have forgotten you did and get jealous at all those people opening their pledges around October when it hits retail. But to make sure you're as excited then as you are now when you're hitting the pledge button and clicking back. You should feel like a kid at Christmas when this thing arrives. And if you're not going to feel that way for whatever reason, maybe 5 of them, then perhaps you should rethink backing. And for me personally, as always, I'm on the fence. Because let's be clear, there's a lot to be excited about. The Zombicide system is a great system. If you haven't heard of it, there are a lot of Zombicides out there, and most of them are very good. They've made a bunch of fantastic games in this genre. And the Marvel IP has become something almost magical over these past 10 years. The movies, the series, it's opened up the love of superheroes beyond the place of camp and nerddom. And hey, maybe you've always been a fan of the series. Maybe you've been a hardcore comics collector. That's why you know that this comes from that comic storyline. It doesn't matter. Both Marvel and Zombicide are incredibly fun. And if there's one thing I've learned in life, smashing 2 great things together always makes an even greater thing. It's a proven fact. Just look at the chickle. Yeah, the chickle. Hot chicken inside of a pickle. Thanks, Fresco Grizzlies. In addition to the IPs, the sculpts, especially the zombie sculpts, honestly, these look to be some of the best sculpts that CMON has ever done. I mean, they've always been good at zombie sculpts, but now they're finally catching up with the sculpted bases as well. I mean, arguably it's just rubble for each one, but it's cool rubble. It gives dynamic poses. The poses seem cool and dynamic. They're really taking a lot of fun liberties, or as many liberties as they can with this sort of Marvel IP. I mean, the cool factor here is off the charts. I don't even mind zombie Cyclops holding his own head, shooting laser beams at people. I mean, yes, excuse me, that's not how zombies work. You see, the main cerebral cortex. I know, I'm usually that guy. I like when we exist in the rules of our own reality and we don't break these pre-constructed rules that we've set out for ourselves. But at the same time, these are superhero zombies, and I guess the rules are just bent. And I think it's funny. I think it would be even funnier if it was Jean Grey holding Cyclops and using him as her own sort of laser beam assassin. But she probably has her own set of powers, if she appears. Who knows who will appear as the campaign progresses. And also, say what you will about the changes to the format, the Zombicide format, and we'll definitely get into that later on, but it's fun that they're doing different things with the world and with the game system. It's not just a reskin of Black Plague or Green Horde. They're specifically tying in a lot of these missions to the bystanders, either going to rescue the bystander or hunting down and eating the bystander. Either way, it seems to all be sort of resolved around these new side characters as well. And that's kind of cool. It gives this unity of the 2 series while making it different from some of their other iterations. And I also like seeing that all of their stretch goals should apply to that main pledge. If you're just getting the base pledge, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine when there are these large campaigns and all their stretch goals don't apply to that lowest tier pledge. Grant you, the lowest tier isn't that low in this case, but it's still great that they're making a conscious effort to be able to create that swap between the heroes and the zombies. And no matter what base game you have or you're going to play, you can still use all the stretch goals, which I think is really well done. Because they could have gone the other way. They could have said, no, this is your hero option over here, and you can use all the characters as the hero mode. And then here's your zombie option. You can use all the characters as the zombie. But having both of them tied in together, that's really nice. You always have a chance to fight the other version of the heroes, whether you're playing as the zombies or the heroes. You can fight those other versions. They basically take the place of the abominations, if you're familiar with the original Zombicides. And I mean, to be fair, this is just the initial look. This is the initial check. This is day one of the launch. I'm filming this at 10 o'clock at night after it's been launched. It's been up for 7 hours. And so of course I'll revisit it in the last week in my standard Monday crowdfunding countdown series so we can fully evaluate the value of the stretch goals versus the shipping cost, touch on any changes or updates that happened in the campaign, and I'm sure there will be a lot of add-ons, as is always the case in any Come On Kickstarter. But I think we're pretty safe to predict that the stretch goals moving forward will be just a bunch of different heroes and their alternate zombie sculpts. That seems to be the way that we're going, and I imagine it'll be the case pretty much across the board. And this is going to go slowly because the daily unlocks, the daily bugle unlocks, which I think is very clever and fun. There's going to be something to tune into every day, and the stretch goals are going to be few and far between if judging by their initial 500,000 gaps as they stand so far. Now, I also was prepared to say that this is probably the best price you will get for this game, even though it is at that higher price point. I'm not as convinced this is true once you factor in the shipping, and because this does start at a higher price point than any of CMON's other campaigns, at least any that I can think of. But this has been one of the main reasons why I always really appreciate CMON Kickstarters. You're usually still getting the best value here. It's probably going to be a higher price somewhere else, or at least the same price, and then the shipping pays for all the stretch goals that you get. That's usually what it works out to for me, and the channels where I pick up board games, right? So it is hard to make that calculation now, especially starting at a price point that I wasn't expecting, but I think with Come On Kickstarters, you can usually bet that they're gonna be pretty expensive in stores, and you get all the extra goodies, and that's why participating in Come On Kickstarter is fun. That's why they've done 50 Kickstarters up until now. This is Kickstarter number 50. That's why they have a proven track record. That's why Kickstarter doesn't care that they have 7 outstanding projects. These are always fun campaigns to be a part of because you always feel like you're getting something special, or you should if you're backing. And then finally, on the excitement scale, we have Galactus. Oh, Galactus. The giant plastic statue, 62 centimeters tall. Sorry, 620 millimeters tall, because it sounds a lot more impressive that way. I mean, I can't even count that high. And I understand those people who are excited about Galactus. I get it. And honestly, if you are, this is probably a good reason to back. I bet you didn't think I would say that, did ya? But this is likely your only opportunity to get that giant Galactus statue. I mean, also, reason number 6 is Galactus. That it's silly and way too expensive, and is the most unnecessary thing you've ever bought in your entire life. And you and I both know this. And yet, you and I both know that there still is no world in which I'll be able to talk you out of getting it. Getting yourself the largest action figure you've ever purchased, and I recognize that. Do you see its interchangeable hands? You can switch its head! Ah! Could I interest you in a $33 Galactus pop toy from Amazon? I mean, it doesn't take up as much shelf space, but you can pop its head right off and super glue Dobby the elf's head on it. So that's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Dobby is a free elf. I mean, collectibles, right? Collectibles, they're a strange thing. I don't personally see the appeal myself, but I recognize that there are many people who do, and you'll have to decide if $220 US, because that's what it'll be at the minimum after shipping the extra cost for this giant plastic statue, if that's worth it to you. If that's worth it to be the, I assume, centerpiece of your collection. And if it isn't the centerpiece of your collectible collection, you gotta let me know what is, because I can only imagine the sculptures that you have at your house right now. Convert that to Canadian dollars, that's $300 Canadian, because there's a little bit extra for shipping. But to be fair, this is another feather in Kamon's cap. Back in the Cthulhu Death May Die campaign, they had this giant Cthulhu statue, and they said, hell no, it's gonna be really limited collector's edition, your first come, first serve. And then they said, oh, we found some more in a back storage closet, but these ones, they cost $5 more. And then those sold out, and then they said, oh, we found some more in the back of this guy's truck, but these ones, they cost $10 more, as if they all weren't being made at the same factory. And I think it's really great and awesome, and makes me excited about this campaign, that Kamon didn't do something like that this time around. They made sure that it was open from day one. This has been their large marketing push with this giant Galactus. And I wasn't sure if they were going to pull a similar stunt that they did with Cthulhu Death May Die. I really wasn't, and I think it's awesome that they have it readily available for everybody to purchase who wants it. And if you want it and that gets you excited, that's fantastic. I love that for you, and I love that you are able to get your hands on it without feeling like it might slip from your grasp. And I think Kamon does deserve to be recognized for that in a way, but only because they were so crappy about it in previous times. So they've improved. I don't know if they get a gold star because it was a problem of their own making, but they have improved. I'm just glad that they aren't creating this sort of artificial scarcity to capitalize on the excitement even more than they have already. So Galactus, that's a bonus reason. I understand that it may not apply. And hey, these next 5, well, they may not apply as well. And if I were a betting man, I'd bet that I'm a little dum-dum who shouldn't even be allowed on the internet anymore. But that aside, you're still here, I'm still here, and I do need a video to talk my future self out of being an even bigger dum-dum and making a rash decision. So I figured, why not let you all be privy to my own video diary as well. Just don't turn to page 43. That's the one with all the hearts around Mr. Bruce Willis George scrawled. It does look good written out, I do have to say. But also is a little too personal for me to be sharing right at this moment. For some of you, we've just met. So let's get into the official reasons why you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies, a Zombicide game, which is not just called Marvel Zombicide, and honestly, that's reason 5.5 anyway. Just accept who you are, stop kidding yourself, you'll always be a Zombicide. But reason number 5 you shouldn't back is that you're shooting first and you're asking questions maybe never. Because when this campaign was first announced, I thought to myself, oh geez, I'm gonna really have to convince my friend Zach to buy this so that I don't have to spend money, because that's the only way that I am not purchasing this thing. And I logged on today at exactly 3 p.m., excited enough to want to see more details about it, and also because I thought, well, hey, if I'm gonna back it, I might as well try and be backer number 1, because that'd be pretty cool. As you can see with the numbers over there, I certainly was not alone. This had a realistic funding goal of $500,000 as opposed to Kamon's usual funding goals of a smaller amount. It's usually around 200K, which I also love and appreciate. Yes, please show us the amount that you need to raise to realistically fund this thing. That's great. One step further to you earning my trust again, Kamon, and then subsequently breaking it for some silly reason. But I started taking that video 1 minute after the campaign had launched because I was stopped. I hesitated at the $130 price point, and that stopped me from even making a fake back just to try to get a backer number. But 3 minutes in, it had already hit its funding goal of $500,000, and 13 minutes in, it had qualified for this 5 reasons you shouldn't back video, passing that $1 million bar. As you'll be able to see, I recorded this for a while. I'll have it fade in and out so that it doesn't distract too much. But in that time frame, I know there's a bunch of people who haven't considered the mechanics yet, who haven't considered the gameplay, and I know it's a lot easier to jump in sight unseen because Zombicide is a fairly popular and well-known franchise, and you're getting basically the same thing as you get different iterations. Plus, there's been a few playthroughs released. I know that makes it easier to jump in right away. Or maybe you're just in it for the Galactus mini and you said, doesn't matter the price, I don't care, I'm going for Galactus, baby. So let this number 5 reason serve as your check. Have you looked into the game, this game, as much as you should have, and is it exciting for you? Because I know from personal experience, when I was logging on today, I cared more about being the first backer than I did the actual game. I cared more about being swept in that rush of money that kept going and going and going. Being part of the first million, being part of the second million, which hit just over an hour after the campaign had launched. And to an extent, it's fine saying, I know this is a company that I love, and I believe that it will give me something else that I love. Sure, cool. And I've done that before. And I've gotten games, and they've been great, well-produced games as I expected them to be, but I didn't necessarily love them to the amount that I wish I did. I liked them, and they were good games, but for these sort of elevated price points, I think we deserve for them to be better than just good games, for our personal preferences. We deserve to have our breath taken away, and at $130 or $240 or $410 plus shipping, I think you want something that takes your breath away. That is an incredible amount of money. So just make sure it has equally as strong an impact when you get it, and you're not just getting swept along with the tide. Now, reason number 4 you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies is that you already own 2 different copies of Zombicide. And I'm being generous here. I'm giving you 2. Not even just 1, because they're cross-compatible, right? I mean, just look at this entire campaign. They're marketing you 2 entirely different cross-compatible games at once. Okay, let's not say entirely different, but 2 base sets that can mix with each other. And I actually thought that this would be cross-compatible with some of the other titles, as a lot of the Zombicides are, but it seems like there are enough differences that it wouldn't mesh well with other systems. I'm sure you could house rule it, but maybe that's why they decided to call it Marvel Zombies instead of Marvel Zombicide, to indicate that it wouldn't be cross-compatible with those sort of other titles. But if you already own 2 copies of Marvel Zombicide, or if you own one and you're waiting for Undead and Alive to get to your door, do you really need a 3rd and a 4th? Or would you be fine getting rid of your least favorite version to make room for this one or these 2? Is this system and the changes to this system going to be so drastically different that it warrants owning 3 or 4 copies of pretty much the exact same game? I mean, for me, I only own 1 copy of Zombicide. I have the Season 2, the Prison Outbreak one, Rue Morgue, maybe it is, which I haven't yet played. So I'm safe in that regard. But my friend Colin owns Zombicide 2nd Edition. My friend Zach owns Green Horde and Black Plague. And I actually forgot, I own Green Plague as well. Although I got it as a mistake, and I'm likely going to use it as a 5K subscriber giveaway or something like that. But it still doesn't matter. Even though it's not in my head that I own it, I still have that on my shelf over there. And I don't need to own it, because I have so many other avenues of Zombicide that I can play. And so with that in mind, this particular theme, at least for me, has to be an even greater draw than any of the other Zombicides that I have access to. And I don't know if it will be that significantly better. I think it might be a little better, but I don't know if it will be worth the price point compared to the amount of enjoyment or increased enjoyment that I will get from it. So do you own 2 versions of Zombicide already? And is that too many? Or do you own more? And if it isn't too many, whatever the number is, what would the number be? The number of Zombicides that you would have to own to make this too much? Because not only is it a money hog, it's also a space hog. Not that space hog, although I wish it was in every Zombicide game. But that does bring us to our reason number 3, which is that CMON still hasn't figured out a way to optimize storage. They've now figured out sculpted bases. Hey, I gotta give it to them. But their storage for their games is really, truly abysmal. It really is. It's a nightmare to set up and tear down. And they don't care that it's a nightmare. You already have the game. They're not interested in making it easier for you to set up and pull out. And I really don't see that changing for this campaign. In fact, this one might even be more of a nightmare because you have all of these alternate sculpts and no real way that they're going to go together effectively. I mean, thank goodness both are compatible with either game, because depending on the number of stretch goals that this unlocks, and depending on the number of stretch goals that they have planned, we are going to be seeing a lot of different superheroes and their alternate zombie personas. So if you are tired with setup and tear down and how that can take a lot of time, and it detracts from a game night, having to set up and tear down and spend so much time on it, and you want to support companies that actually care about organizing that for you, then this would not be the campaign to buy. You're going to have to wait until a third party figures out a storage solution for everything that I think Command should have stepped up and figured out for themselves, really. There are so many games out there on Kickstarter that have taken the time and take the time to commission someone to design functional, beautiful inserts for their games. Stuff that helps you get the game to the table. And Command's usual storage solution is sending out these brown boxes which house a bunch of miniature trays without any lids on them. Because the boxes have the lids, so if they go back in the boxes, they're all safe and secure, right? It is the most inefficient way of setting up and tearing down, and the fact that so many companies have gotten around to changing their mindset on this and changing the mindset in terms of how we send out games, and Command has yet to catch up with that curve. If those sorts of things matter to you, and they will impact your own getting it to the table or your own desire to get it to the table, just be aware that you're going to have to throw it all out and do it yourself, or perhaps look somewhere else for a different game that will give you a little bit more in that regard. I mean, this one isn't a huge deal for me. I like making inserts. Well, it is a huge deal. I don't like making inserts, but I like having inserts that work, and I'm too poor to buy any third-party inserts, so I have to make my own. So I do think this is worth mentioning and could be a worthwhile reason to vote with your wallet, although at this point they likely won't see or care at this vote, which will be a drop in the bucket, as I'm sure it has made another $100,000 since I even started filming this video. In real time, that would be. But external factors aside, let's talk about the mechanics, because for me, that's usually the most important part. And so reason number 2 you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies is that the mechanic changes aren't interesting enough, exciting enough. Now, there are a few fairly significant changes from this Marvel Zombies to the other Zombicide games that, depending on how you feel about them, will determine if this is a point for or against backing it. I guess that's a pretty generic and useless statement. You may or may not like this. He said about everything ever. But the main mechanic that stands out as being different to me in this one is the hunger. As a zombie hero, you're going to get hungrier and hungrier as the game progresses until you go crazy and need to unleash that hunger and chomp down on some delicious, unsuspecting bystander. Although, if they're unsuspecting at this point, with a giant war zone raging outside their door, heroes having been turned into zombie versions of themselves, and countless SHIELD agents screaming with heavy gunfire and who knows what else, well, honestly, if they are unsuspecting that there is danger to their life, you had it coming, J. Jonah Jameson. You know what? I'm on the zombie side now. Zombie side. I mean, it's obviously homicide, or genocide, or as my father's always been afraid of ever since he learned of my dark passenger, patricide. Reminds me of that old country tune, oh, my dad's a zombie and I gotta put him down. But the fact is that at a certain point, if you're hungry enough, you get so mad at your little tummy ache that you have to charge at someone and try to eat them before that hunger zaps 33% of your life force, just gone. I can see myself being annoyed at this. I also know that I'm going to miss the weapons that are replaced by these generic one-time use superpowers. Part of my favorite thing about Zombicide is that you get more powerful over time. You scavenge for these weapons and you find something that works really well, and then you slash down the abominations with your awesome sword that you had to search for and work for and fend off the dead while you were also trying to accomplish and complete the goals associated with your mission. In this one, while I think that the promise of each hero being more unique than just your typical Zombicide hero, I think that's a fun one. You know they're all going to be about the same power level anyway, or else the game wouldn't really be balanced. And you know the game is going to revolve around exploiting that hunger mechanic. And I know it's somewhat included probably to avoid people from turtling and forcing everyone to participate in the action, and creates this growing urgency and this timer, because you can't just game the system and stay in that blue level until you've found the good weapons. You get experience every time you kill a baddie in Zombicide, and as soon as one character levels up to a certain tier, gets enough experience points, then the zombie hordes, they spawn even harder enemies. So the game scales in that way. And honestly, it's probably this hunger mechanic is why the game seems harder than some of the other iterations of it. At least from the initial reports, or from what I can see. But I just really don't like the concept of playing a game where I can't control my own actions. I can't control my character's destiny. I just played Trajan the other day and was struck with a similar feeling because I couldn't take the actions that I wanted because I'm awful at Mancala. I mean, these are very different games, to be clear. But that really doesn't pull me in. What does pull me in is the same mechanic on the hero side of things, the power mechanic, where you're gradually building up this power and then can unleash a devastating attack. That's awesome. That's really cool. But unfortunately, that also leads us to our number one, which is the number one reason you shouldn't back Marvel Zombies, is that the base game, or rather the base pledge, doesn't let you be the heroes. As it stands right now, I mean, I imagine this has to change. It has to change, right? But as it stands right now, you can't just purchase the X-Men Hero Core box. It's bundled to that upper tier. You either pay $130 to get Marvel Zombies, or you pay $240 to get Marvel Zombies and X-Men The Resistance, where you get the privilege of playing as the heroes. And maybe it's because the Marvel Zombies version is pretty much complete and the X-Men isn't, that we can surmise, judging by their split shipping waves, that Marvel Zombies will arrive in October, December, and X-Men will arrive along with the rest of everything else in June 2023, October 2023. Or maybe it's because they know that people don't want to be the zombie heroes. They want to be the regular heroes. And maybe that isn't you. Maybe you just want to be a zombie hero and you want to run around like the hungriest hippo that ever lived and eat all the people to your heart's content. But for me, I don't want to be the zombie. I think the zombie hero version is inherently less interesting. And it's not because you're a zombie, but it's because it means that there are less zombies in the game. The zombie sculpts look incredible. I want more of them. They're awesome. But I want to fight them. I don't want to fight some boring shield agent. I don't want to fight some boring human. I want to fight the undead. I want to mow down hordes of zombies and save the world. I don't want to cause the destruction. Although, to be fair, even the music in the trailer makes me feel like, oh yeah, I do want to be this zombie hero and cause devastation. I want that. But ultimately, I know that I don't want to be a zombie in my heart of hearts that is still beating. I want to smell the flowers and not eat the flower store clerk. But also, I think the zombie version is inherently less interesting to painters. And I can only assume this based upon what all of my painting friends have told me. That they don't want to paint the generic shield agents, but they want to paint the zombies each with a unique blood splatter on them. Because gore is more fun to paint than just, oh, here we are in uniform that is designed to look the same. And I mean, this argument is slightly made up for with the stretch goals because there will be a bunch of zombies or heroes on either side, for sure. But I really think that just visually, the Marvel Zombies core box is much less interesting than the X-Men core box. And I really don't understand why they're choosing to bundle two core boxes together. I mean, they're even referring to them both as core boxes, and yet there's no core pledge for X-Men. There has to be a pledge coming down the line, which includes all of the X-Men add-ons that they're saving for later so that they can cave to what everybody wanted. We've heard you. You wanted an X-Men only pledge? We decided to pull out all the stops and get it for you. I mean, this should be a no-brainer to have from the beginning. Not only are you leaving money on the table from people like me who only want the hero side of things and would really be considering backing it if that larger price point wasn't out of my reach, you're deliberately pushing people towards getting that extra pledge level to combine the two, even if they are only more excited about X-Men. It feels like a deliberate marketing tactic, and deliberate in terms of trying to sell more pledges or to make the zombie side of things more appealing as the campaign moves on so that you can convert on some of those people by the end of the campaign who have resigned themselves and want that X-Men pledge and have said, sure, I'll get the zombies with it because that's the only way. Or at least that's how it feels to me right now. I can't understand why that is the case. Maybe they'll update it in the FAQ or something down the line, but that makes it a little bit easier for me to say no to, because I don't like it when campaigns do stuff like that. Obvious withholding, well, it could be good in the right circumstances, usually turns me off of a project. Anyway, those are my 5 reasons why you shouldn't back. I mean, obviously, hey, I might change my mind, and I really think I would have pulled the trigger if it was $100 for the base pledge. I was expecting for it to be 110. I was not expecting for it to be 130 because after shipping and conversion, 200 bucks Canadian is quite a lot of money for me, and too much to spend on something that I'm actively not looking forward to, which is the Marvel Zombies side of things. But please let me know in the comments below, are you backing Marvel Zombies? Or are you not? And if so, what are your reasons? I always find that it's great to have these comment sections going because whatever your reasons, I'm sure it'll be helpful to those who are currently on the fence and making up their mind. What are you excited about? What do you think the all-in tier is gonna cost? For sure, $700 at this point. It's gotta be. But thanks for sticking around till now anyway. I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to hearing all of your thoughts as well, and to hearing why I should just throw these thoughts out the window and just go for it. Because yeah, the zombie versions, they do look really cool. Anyway, once again, my name is Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase. But if you want to contribute to the Catchphrase Development Fund, sign up for my Patreon. Or don't, because this might be the first time we're meeting, and how friggin' presumptuous is this guy, eh? Throwing in an ad where the final joke should have resided? Throwing in extra paid content when you were expecting something Oh god. I've become the enemy. That's where the screen would... We'll work on those sorts of effects when we get a bigger budget. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.